Marvel is killing the game at the moment, with a host of successful franchise heroes and villains doing battle on the big screen at least twice a year for the past decade. One reason these movies are often well received by fans and critics alike is because, despite clocking in at over 2 hours, they often feel like lean affairs. Unlike some blockbusters chock full of superfluous sequences, the Marvel movies never tend to stray too far from their opening gambit. This is true of the action in these movies. A large reason why Marvel's action is so entertaining is because it always satisfies both character and plot. Take the opening scene from Captain America the Winter Soldier, for example. We're reintroduced to Cap, aka Steve Rogers, in the first act of the movie by seeing him stealthily and effortlessly destroy waves of bad guys aboard a ship before laying the smack down to Batroc the Leaper. This entire sequence serves a purpose to the story. This scene communicates to us that Steve has been adapting to the modern world, fitting seamlessly into S.H.I.E.L.D., and delivering on a fighting style that's a clear step up from his 1940s prowess evident in the first Avenger and the Avengers. This ties in with the previous scene.
Must have freaked you out coming home after the whole defrosting thing.
Takes some getting used to.
Cementing the thrust of Steve's arc, and it shows him adjusting to the modern world in a good way, before that same modern world shows off its dark side, and it all goes very, very badly for him.
Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
Guardians of the Galaxy is another great example. The prison break sequence tells us a little bit more about every one of the characters and shows how useful they are as a team. We get to see Rocket's resourcefulness as well as a liking for practical jokes, we get to understand the depth of Drax's idiocy, and we see them pair up to take on the bad guys. The prison break assembles all the main characters together and sends the plot thrust headfirst into the second act. The whole thing is entertaining because it serves a purpose. If you were to cut this action out of the movie wouldn't work. In fact, Marvel's two most successful sequences double down on the inherent importance of action to serve its plot and character, finally tuning the best possible way to do this with a story structure woven into them. These sequences are the Battle of New York in the Avengers, and the airport battle in Civil War. The New York battle sees the newly formed Avengers, Captain America, Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, Hawkeye, and Black Widow attempt to contain an alien onslaught spearheaded by Loki, the Asgardian god of mischief. The airport battle in Civil War sees a slightly different and expanded team of Avengers, including newbies such as Ant-Man, Spider-Man, Scarlet Witch and the Falcon, fight each other. Here they are divided into two teams, one led by Iron Man, aka Tony Stark, and the other led by Captain America. Both sequences were adored by audiences and pushed the boundaries of superhero action on the big screen. They both feature a ton of characters, a large open location that's actually a bunch of different, smaller locations, and they're both essential to the larger plot at play in their respective movies. It's probably no coincidence that you can break down both battles into 7 core components. The preamble. In both action sequences there is a preamble. None of the Avengers are giving it their A game, they're scattered, and they don't seem to have any semblance of a plan. In this preamble, we also get a clear sense of the two main opposing forces. In the Avengers, the protagonist of our New York battle is Tony, whilst the threat, the opposing force, is Loki.
The Chitauri are coming. Nothing will change that. What have I to fear?
The Avengers.
In the airport sequence, Captain America is the protagonist, whilst Tony gets to be the opposing force this time out.
I'm trying to keep you from tearing the Avengers apart.
You did that when you signed.
Their brief exchanges help to punctuate the ensuing battles, and remind the audience as simply as possible, this is what we're fighting for. Why is this? Well, having the heroes staggered and shattered leaves them on the back foot. It naturally allows the battle to ramp up in scale, as we start off seeing the heroes by themselves before seeing them all together in a triumphant wide. It also allows the sequence to breathe at the very start, showing the audience who we should be focusing on and who will become the most important characters towards the end of the battle. The preamble is also where a lot of smaller locations are outlined and made use of. In Civil War, Bucky and the Falcon fight Spider-Man inside an airport building, and Thor and Loki fight on a balcony outside Stark Tower. These locations help to give a nice feeling of scale to the preamble, as we see multiple characters in multiple smaller places before seeing them in more wide open spaces later on in the battle. The players take stage. All the periphery characters will be revealed at this point, usually with a sort of defining line.
Underoos!
And they can be used to inspire a moment before uniting the team, such as Ant-Man's reveal, freeing Cap and setting their plan into motion, or Spider-Man's. Here at the very end of the preamble, Vision drops in to round out the ensuing disaster. In the Avengers this also occurs with Thor's arrival and ends with Banner's. This helps to push the ensemble nature of both battles. We get clear entrances from all the characters who will be taking part in the fight and get a good look at their appearance and abilities. This helps to make sure the audience knows who is fighting and where when chaos is breaking out all over the screen later on. It's also worth noting that early on, around this sort of time, the objects of desire are made aware to the audience. These are the portal machine, Loki's staff, and the Quinjet in its hangar. These objects of desire are seeded in early as they will become important in winding down each battle to a logical closure point. The money shot. Now we have the money shot, the moment that graced all the trailers in the lead up to each respective release. In the Avengers, it's the arc shot, showing off the team. In Civil War, it's the moment Team Iron Man and Team Cap charge at each other. Following the preamble and seeing all the players take to the stage, it's the perfect opportunity to get stuck into it and kick off the battle with a huge moment. This signals to the audience that what they came here to see is surely about to kick off. Crucially, it's also a big moment in defining the location of the battle. As we've looked at with the preamble, up until this point the heroes have been fighting in a multitude of smaller locations clustered around this big one. In New York it's the viaduct where our heroes assemble, and this location becomes the most prominent place in the entire battle. In Civil War, the heroes converge in the wide open centre of the airport, and this is where the largest portions of the ensuing fight will take place. Next up we have the fun and games. To borrow a term from Blake Snyder's Save the Cat, here is where our battles fulfill the promise of the premise. You wanted to see the Avengers taking on a group of aliens? Well, here you go. You want to see those same Avengers beating the snot out of each other? Well, here's that coming right up. I call this the fun and games too because that's what it is. Fun. I wouldn't say this part of the fight is tense, but more a chance for everyone to display their powers and get to grips with each other's fighting styles. The stakes are higher than the preamble, but nothing too troublesome is happening here. We're still riding off the high of that all-important money shot, and the sequences are ploughing their efforts into reminding the audience why they came here in the first place. And of course, if you want things to go to a more tense place, you need this lighter stuff first, before the reversal. Here the fun and games abruptly stops when the heroes realise they're surely going to lose unless the aforementioned goal or object of desire is attained. In the Avengers it's when the team realise that they need to shut down the portal and that they've got a nuke coming straight for the city. In Civil War it's when Hawkeye points out that in order to win, some of us are going to have to lose it, and that Cap and Bucky need to make a straight shot for the Quinjet. These objects of desire were always present in the battles, but here they've become actively important. It's clear to the audience to end the battle, these goals must be attained, and here we call upon our two opposing forces from earlier in the preamble. The grand finale. Tony, our heroic opposing force, realises he has to catch the nuke and send it up into the sky. Cap takes point on the charge towards the Quinjet, the team knowing that he must escape to complete their overarching mission. In both scenarios, a secondary hero gives a heaping of teamwork to sweeten the deal, and in both cases it happens to be Black Widow, closing the portal and tasing the life out of Black Panther. Black Widow's role here is more coincidental than anything else, but it's interesting that she always seems relegated to doing the important stuff that needs to be done so that our other heroes can get the limelight. If I were to criticise the use of Loki in the New York battle, it's that his usage as the key opposing force becomes a bit forgotten about. It's mainly played for a joke here, which, whilst funny, relegates him to being cut out of the battle. The nuke itself becomes the key opposing force. In Civil War, Iron Man, our established opposing force, leads the charge to take down Cap in the escaping Quinjet. I think the airport battle comes to a head in a slightly more satisfying way for this reason. The happy ending? This is where these battles diverge a little bit, and the reason why is all to do with the larger structure at play. In the Avengers, Stark collapses back to the ground and is caught mid-air by the Hulk. The team converge around him, concerned that he may not have survived his big play. But of course, he does, and with that the day is won. The battle is over. In Civil War, War Machine accidentally bears the brunt of friendly fire and is similarly sent crashing to the ground. Except this time, the hero doesn't come to, and Tony and the others are left to ponder their actions. It's a decidedly more sombre end to the battle than in the Avengers. Why are they different? Well, the key difference between both of these battles is where they are placed within each respective movie. The New York battle is the big third act finale to the entire film, and needs to end on a triumphant note to pay off the burgeoning teamwork the movie has sought to create across its running time. The airport battle, on the other hand, occurs just at the end of Civil War's second act. The sombre ending here works because it's meant to put its principal characters in the worst possible physical and emotional state, before the third act, where everything that has been set up will come together. And what's great about both of these sequences is that they can be satisfying to watch as clips by themselves, whilst also working very well within the overarching narratives that are being told. This is why films like Age of Ultron have bewildering action. What do we get in the finale to Ultron that satisfies character? Iron Man notes that they'll beat Ultron,
Like the old man said.
Together.
A callback to an earlier line. But do they kick ass any better or worse than the start of the movie? Not really. In fact, if I was to show you any of the sequences in Age of Ultron with no prior context, do you think you'd be able to guess where they come in the narrative? Nothing really changes, and half these sequences don't really need to be there, like the entire fight with the Hulkbuster. Seeing them kick ass in the opening and closing scenes in exactly the same manner doesn't satisfy character. And yes, this is why the DC Extended Universe efforts haven't fared as well either. Note how much of DC's action too often devolves into a mess of CGI. The one exception to this, the Wonder Woman's No Man's Land scene. Just like in the best Marvel sequences, we see our lead, Diana, grow and change, as well as seeing the periphery characters change and develop into a team. The change that occurs facilitates the need for this sequence, as we see the protagonist display the courage to stand up and do the right thing, proving her worth as a warrior to her newfound friends, and giving them the inspiration to fight themselves. A lot of superhero movies equate good action to simply a lot of it. A good action sequence doesn't need to follow the structure of the Marvel battles, but it does need to facilitate some sort of change. The characters should be in a different physical or emotional place than where they were before. Otherwise, what's the point in watching it?